Welcome to Breaking Banks Africa. I'm Matteo Rizzi, and together with my co-host Nadine Doro, let us take you on a journey of entrepreneurship, innovation, and vibrant ecosystems Africa has to showcase. More than 1 in 4 people will be African by 2050, this continent being already the youngest of the planet. You can't miss these stories. This is Breaking Banks Africa. Let's roll. Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking Banks Africa. I am Matteo Rizzi, the executive producer of the show, and I am together with my co-host Nadine. Nadine, welcome. How are you?
Hello, Matteo. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very great and excited for this new episode. How are you, Matteo?
All good, thank you. And our guest is Melanie Keita, CEO and co-founder of Melanin Capital. Melanie, welcome to Breaking Banks Africa.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
It's so amazing to see all these smiling faces. That's why I can't get out of this smile from my face. So let's start this episode with an anecdote. So I met Melanie, I want to say a little less than a year ago at the EcoBank challenge. And to be completely honest, and after all the successes that she has in this past months, I can say the full story. I did not get fully what Melanin Capital was doing at the very first pitch, and I was there as a coach, so gave my suggestion and feedback. I would like to think that some of that advice was listened to. And Melanie ended up winning a prize, which was amazing, and recently fundraise, which is, an amazing endeavor and sort of milestone, for Melanie Capital itself. So, you see, Nadine, that's Melanie and I has we have a common past.
Wow, I think this is pretty amazing, and I would like to know more about this because you win a prize and now you're fundraising. Melanie, can you tell us more about what Melanin Capital does? What is so excited about you, and why is Matteo so excited about this startup?
Yeah, thank you so much, Nadine, and thank you, Matteo, for reminding me this story. Although it's very difficult for me to forget it because it's a bit our origin story, because this whole EcoBank Fintech challenge and so on, it kind of like kick off a full different life for Melanin Capital. But I'll come back to that. So basically what Melanin Capital does is our ambition is to become the first carbon digital bank in the continent. So what would that mean? That means that we focus solely on the green economy and on climate. We provide digital loans, mostly in the form of receivable financing to agriculture and renewable energy companies. We provide carbon credit brokerage through our digital marketplace, and we provide certification by tracking the carbon of the SMEs that we have as users. Interestingly enough, as Matteo did mention during the pitch I made to him, we just became a bank after the EcoBank Fintech Challenge, because before that, we did have a platform and SMEs were able to apply for loans, but we did not have an actual wallet where the SMEs could just store their money. So now after the EcoBank Fintech Challenge, we managed to sign a partnership at the group level where we could basically use the EcoBank license and the backend to now accept deposits from SMEs and use this data to also lend. So today we've been able to disburse around $1 million of loans to agricultural companies mostly, and supporting them with the climate input, solar irrigation equipment, and financing basically the inventory that they needed to sell to large companies. And we are doing our first carbon credits transactions for organic fertilizers and irrigation companies now this month. We got financing mostly from EcoBank this time. So we basically partnered with EcoBank to access local currency capital in Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria. So this is this was really our origin story, and I did listen a lot to what you said, Matteo. It brought a lot of clarity, and then after that, we continued pitching what you advised, and that really helped us a lot.
Actually, I remember so clearly that presentation because your storytelling was that woman, right? That was, in the field, and she had the business that, she didn't need money, of course, but she had a business that potentially, I don't remember exactly which one. And the reason why, I would like you to repeat that story is because probably if someone who is listening to the show for the first time, after what you just pitched, it might have troubles in understanding, on the ground, what happens. Okay, so why don't you tell us again the story of that lady, trying to get a loan for her business, because that will clarify a lot. What does it mean, helping these people in the ground?
True. Yeah, thanks so much for bringing a bit more concrete aspect to it. So essentially, who we wanted to focus was those farmers, which is the majority of the SMEs in the African market, who are doing very simple businesses. So, for instance, that woman was planting avocado trees in Western Kenya, right? So avocado trees actually have the potential of saving carbon, but the problem is that we have those farmers have very small pieces of land and very small amount of avocados for them to be able to actually apply for carbon credits. So what we do is we partner with agritechs a lot to aggregate all those farmers, and then the agritechs provide the inputs, the seedlings, the fertilizers, and the irrigation that those farmers need. And then the farmers sell the avocados to those agritechs who then sell it back to corporations. And what happened is that thanks to all the data that we collect in collaboration with the agritech, we're able to certify those farmers to show that the carbon of that those farmers are saving thanks to the trees now can be sold to polluters like Total, like Nestle, Danone, AWS, and so on. So that's basically how we make it work. So essentially, we would all want to look at carbon credits like on a one-on-one basis, but because it's our markets are so are composed of such small SMEs, what we need to do first is to aggregate and put like a little bit more data and visibility to those small businesses, and then once we are able to do that, then we can sell the carbon credits.
Wow, I am a bit I'm surprised, I'm excited, and I think you are at the intersection of two very challenging fields, right? You are where fintech is, you are also where we're talking about climate finance. And what I think our listeners would like to know is what are the challenges that you faced? Placing yourself right there in the rural areas, working with farmers and also finance companies and carbon and all these things that a lot of people are asking themselves questions about. What are those challenges that you face while scaling Melanin Capital?
I try to focus on the key ones, right? But first of all, in this fintech space, the first challenge is regulation and licensing. Then, of course, you have a challenge of access to the right data. And finally, the kind of like challenge of access to capital to lend. So when you talk about licensing, and that's why the EcoBank Fintech Challenge was so important to us, is because we wouldn't be able to do what we do without having the necessary compliance with the Central Bank of Kenya and with this partnership with EcoBank. So that's a first big issue, and that's why for the first 4 years we basically did more of a software as a service to banks than actually doing the lending ourselves. And that's why, like, even from an investor perspective, it looks like we've pivoted a lot, but it takes quite a lot of time for you to be compliant ready, let's say, as a fintech. Then the second aspect is access to data. So it's very it's very challenging to be able to imagine expanding across even just the 33 markets that EcoBank is covering without having a way to collect data on those farmers that are not in the big cities, that don't necessarily like have a bookkeeping structure, who do everything on like paper or through mobile money, right? So that's why this partnership with agritechs was key, because like you need to be able to work with an ecosystem of players, from cooperatives to agritechs to like even microfinance or SACCOs sometimes, because it's very, very challenging to just go directly. And I'm a I'm a very strong advocate of not being blinded by the religion of tech. Tech can't solve everything. There's also strategic partnerships that helps you to get there. Then the final one was access to capital. I mean, you must have had this whole funding winter or like post-aid era. I mean, it's very real for us, right? Because when you look at a lot of the digital companies, even the M-Copas, the Market Force and the likes, who lended digitally to the micro segments, they had a lot of grants to get started and to make the model sustainable. As we have to make it a profitable model from the get-go, and you have to now face like the challenge of accessing loans that are crazy interest rates. Like sometimes, like I actually I had a proposal from Europe, like an investor in Europe, for like 40% per year, for instance. So if I borrow at 40% and then I add my margin, you lend at like 60 or 80% to the farmer. You have the issue of currencies, right? So the more you get more money from abroad and dollars and euros, then it's very challenging to go into. We are in Uganda, you are in Nigeria. So, like this is a big, you have to manage it a lot. And then when you go to local banks, you have to battle a little bit on the pricing, and then the negotiation on how we repay. It's also like a skill that we had to build at Melanin Capital. So those were the challenges. Of course, like we're still working on it, but now after 5 years, it's getting a little bit easier every day to do this business.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I guess there's so much to be done. Looking at it and looking at this specific market you currently have in Kenya. You mentioned Nigeria. Are you also in Nigeria?
Yeah, we also land in Nigeria, and Uganda. A lot of them are also businesses that work in Kenya and that either have businesses also in those countries. But yeah, our biggest footprint still is in Kenya. But we're now like also looking at some loans that we will be doing in Senegal and in Zambia this year. Also thanks to some of our thanks to our founders, like the GIZ has been really, really supportive, and they're the ones that help us to like expand at a better rate. And same with the EU. So yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it takes me to the next point, which would be what is then the size of a market that you would like to address at this point? Agriculture is huge. It's especially for West Africa at this time. It's one key element when it comes to the economy. I mean, Cote d'Ivoire, it's more than 60%, it's huge. So what are you looking at in terms of attaining the market? And what are the regulatory issues that you think you're going to come across?
Super. I love this question because finally, we've managed to do a market assessment. So I'm very excited to talk about that. So when I look at the market, I don't necessarily just look at agriculture or like renewable energy, but I look at the potential of receivable financing, which is basically the loans that we are giving, and what is the revenue potential of receivable financing, and the potential of carbon credits. So essentially, like when you look at the markets of receivable financing in Africa, you're looking at something around $1 trillion. But for us in the countries that we are looking at, the gap would be around 90 billion, mostly with the companies that are not, the agri companies that are not able to access receivable financing from banks, either because the clients that they're serving are not big clients, they may be just cooperatives or larger food companies, but they're not the Carrefour or the Nestle, the Lavazza, and so on. That's the banks are considering. So the receivable financing market is actually humongous, and this is now where we are putting our bread and butter essentially when it comes to lending. Then when you look at carbon credits, currently in the African continent, you have over like 350 projects that are certified for a total potential of like 200 and $300 million of carbon trading, right? It's still a nascent market though, and clearly like you have a little bit different like verticals. You have those big forestry projects where we can't play really a role, and then you have the ones that are a bit smaller with like solar, clean cooking, anything related to waste management or like agricultural waste to fertilizers and so on and so forth. And this is like more of a like more of a 30 to $50 million market at the moment. So this is where we are playing. We are still working on certifying more projects and seeing how you can improve the supply because the demand is still there. You still have like large corporates that need to compensate their carbon. You have now governments after the COP29 in Baku. You have a lot of governments that are looking at compensating their carbon. So there is a big potential, but now it will depend, and I come to the regulation discussion. It will depend how the regulatory framework in Africa is also evolving. We have more and more countries like Kenya, Uganda, who have put together carbon credits markets, and this will definitely depend the market and the opportunities, but the rest of the African countries need to follow and need to come on board. I should mention Ghana because Ghana also has a very strong carbon credit market, and I would be killed if I don't mention them. But yeah, there's still a lot to do.
So, Melanie, just to, I want to figure out if I understand it correctly. The name of the game here is not really to find, the guys who are going to buy the credits, because, even 300 million, if you just done one, there is still a long way to go. The name of the game here is to make sure that, whatever avocado tree farmer you're financing, is still going to be around in 3 years from now, right? So is the soundness of the source of the business and the lack of data to evaluate it, your name of the game. I am understanding correctly, and that's the first half of the question. And the second half is, have you considered crowd lending for this? I mean, or maybe you're doing it already. I don't know. But when I think of the risk of covering the capital is almost null. The risk is the default of the lenders, right? So of the guys, of the companies that are receiving the money, in the first place. But if the competition is 40% interest, you have a lot of space, right, to be able to. So talk to us a little bit more about these two aspects.
Yeah, no, thanks, Matteo, for the question. So indeed, what you say is very true about the nerves of the game, because like the reason why Africa's carbon credits is only 2% of the carbon credits in the world is because there is a lack of understanding of the soundness of the companies, if they will be able to deliver on the carbon reduction. And because the buyers are not really sure about that, then they shy away because it has a huge reputational risk for them to actually finance the carbon projects of businesses or projects that are actually not operating and cannot deliver. So the key thing for us and where we can position ourselves very well is first to make sure that we can aggregate those projects, get the right data and transparency to those buyers. The second is also to provide the highest quality of these carbon credits. That means that also, yes, reduces CO2 or absorbs CO2, but also has strong community impacts. So it includes like gender empowerment and youth empowerment and so on. And this is data that we track and that you don't find in other projects, for example, competing projects that will be in Europe or in the USA, right? And the final part is the fact that we also lend to those businesses, then that really allows to give the buyer an additional layer of trust, because then this business will continuously have access to financing to be able to deliver on the carbon reduction. So this is where we can be really really strong. Now, when it comes to your second question, which was about
the crowd lending. So what I
the
mean,
crowd lending.
I can I give you 100K and you lend it to your own clients? As simple as that.
Well, this is now something that we are just considering. We just don't know where to start, but we have gotten some requests from, like people who are working for companies that were partners, but they didn't know really, they couldn't necessarily like finance us through the corporates, but they want to do it directly as individuals. But to be honest, we have to find a way to make it work. We're not sure how we can do that. But yeah, in theory, crowd lending could work very well, because you would lend to me as an individual. Then our portfolio risk is only 3%. Like we only lose 3% out of our portfolio, and we have guarantees with a partnership of the African Guarantee Fund that covers 75% of our portfolio. So essentially, we'll be able to give returns between 5 to 10% per annum quite easily, according to the currency in the sector, but without losing the money. So crowd lending could be a very good avenue.
And so, Melanie, you are really in a field that is, I know I don't know much about how structured the agricultural sector is in Kenya, but in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, there's a lot of informal activities in this sector. It requires so much work to organize this sector and really get it to formalize things. And being a woman, sorry for asking this, I'm working also with women in the digital field. What are the difficulties as a woman that you face in this sector?
Yes, being a woman in any sector is difficult. Being a woman in finance is equally not easy. But I would say, what was difficult is indeed to work with those informal sector. It's really usually male dominated when you look at the cooperatives and so on. So that's why our chief operating officer, who is a man and who has a very, very strong understanding of the ground, Ian Minjure, is the one that leads most of those operations, while I'm way more about the investor side and the capital access side. Because yes, they are like realities on the ground and negotiations that are done a certain way that basically is easier as a man than as a woman. I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you want to be as efficient as possible, it's also, of course, we also go and work a lot with women's groups and so on. But even those women's groups sometimes are more responsive to a man than a woman. So it's an interesting balance that you have to face. But with Ian, we have a good split between operations and access to capital.
Melanie, I really would like you to share also as a good story with for the rest of the entrepreneurs that are listening to us, your fundraising adventure. Because you clearly spoke with a lot of VCs at the beginning. I immediately told you just that when outside of the, let's say, pitch coaching thingy, but when you and I had a conversation, I said you are in a complicated spot because you're raising an amount which is not enough for a very large VC, and at the same time is very risky for a seed one, especially because you're not in a very popular business. you don't have metrics, you're really literally breaking the ground, and probably the next Melanin Capital will raise twice as much, but in the meantime, you will be awfully, way too big, for your first ranking place to be bothered, right? But I think it's important, for you to share some of the lessons. And if you wanna if you're fundraising again soon, this is the place you can shout out.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. So my fundraising journey, I'll try to make it as uplifting as possible. But so we started fundraising actually in 2022. We bootstrapped for 2 years. And in 2022, there was still a lot of American investors coming into Africa. There was still the VC space was still like in a honeymoon phase, right? So there was still a lot of VC funding accessible. And we went to all the pitches, Africa Arena, agritechs, Dubai, and so on. And that's how we managed to close our seed round for $500,000. But now we are fundraising for $1 million since last year. It's been quite challenging. We've met a lot of investors and went through actually quite a number of due diligences where the investors didn't have money themselves, or they didn't actually finish their round. So we had to start again quite a lot, and it's quite soul breaking, I would say. But what I would say to founders who want to fundraise, now if I would have to start completely again, try to think of your business fundamentals, right? This year, we're making quite a lot of progress when it comes to revenue. We have a recurring revenue. We're able to make a healthy 48% margin on our loans. We're able to actually we're able to actually get our money back every month, and to show to our investors that if we have more debt capital to lend, we're able to grow faster and to be more profitable. But it took us time to get there, and I think what is more difficult for investors now is to come into startups that really have no path towards profitability, or who have no path towards revenue generation. But as that's not our case, what was very challenging for us is because we had to have services that we were selling to still bootstrap and to still finance the business, that were not the core of our business model, and that was not what we were raising on. So that's, I can understand for some, we are a lot of funders like that, where you do like consultancy services and so on for your clients because you need to eat, as simple as that, you need to pay your employees, but it's not fully like the business model that you're selling to investors. And that's what it's a narrative that is a bit difficult to sell. But now our platform works, we're able to scale. So now it's much easier to fundraise for us.
Well, Melanie, you've done so much, and I'm sure our listeners will learn so much from that, and about the resilience you have, and how your company is growing so fast, and the potential. I see so much potential. I see so many things that could be done. So, where do we see Melanin Capital in the next 5 years? What is your vision at this point?
In the next 5 years, Melanin Capital is looking at becoming the largest Pan-African carbon bank. We have the right partner with EcoBank to do so, and we hope to also, be part of a big financial conglomerate in 5 years, where we can be able to also either merge or be acquired by a mother company. Melanin Capital in 5 years has at least financed 10,000 SMEs. That's the goal, and is at least in 5 to 10 countries. So I'm saying 5 to 10 because it really depends on how we will work with our partners, but that's basically the goal. And I hope that I'll be able to report to you both that this is what we've achieved.
We look forward to meeting you in Côte d'Ivoire soon.
I was in Côte d'Ivoire. Yes, I have to come back now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Ladies, that has been amazing. Thank you very much, Melanie, for being part of this journey of Breaking Banks Africa. That is, it was built exactly to give a voice for entrepreneurs and change makers like you. The good news is that I'm coming over to Nairobi, so I'll actually have a pleasure to have a coffee, and you will tell me more about your journey. Nadine, thank you very much for being with us also.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Matteo.
And now I will let Nadine do the two magic words that will actually end each episode that by now you have learned. And
yes, that's a wrap.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Melanie. It was great talking to you.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Africa, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with timepledge.org. Don't forget to share us out or shout out across social media. If there is something or someone you would like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next month on Breaking Banks Africa.